Yes, I'm Bethan Corkill, and I'm a wellbeing coach. I'm a physiotherapist by background, but I no longer practice as a physio. So I practice as a wellbeing coach primarily with people with long-term health problems, particularly long-term pain. And at the moment, I'm running wellbeing programs for people with long-term pain.
So, could you tell us what sort of people do you care for?
Well, actually, they're usually the people with the most complex problems because they're being turned away from conventional NHS pathways because those are very much linear pathways and they don't fit those linear pathways. So I'm probably getting the people with, yes, I would say I am getting people with sometimes 9 or 10 different labels.
Wow.
And you can, if people, what hasn't happened is nobody's seen that person as a whole. So they've gone down a linear pathway of care for every label without anybody seeing the whole person and without there being any communication between the clinical units that see them for each individual condition.
When you first meet these people, are they... How do they present? Are they normally frustrated, angry, lost?
Yeah, I would say all those.
Yeah.
Searching for something that'll fix them, not understanding, even though some of them have been in, sort of health care for 20 years or more. Not understanding that pain is a normal part of life and that there's no cure for pain. If we cured pain, we would all die tonight. It's there to protect us, and having we're having really lost all hope in life because we have a lot of pain management programs in this country and a lot of people who specialise in pain in this country. The first thing they say is there's no cure for pain, you have to learn to live with this, you have to learn coping skills to manage this. And when I was first writing my course, I wanted something that I would be happy with if I had long-term pain. And I thought, well, if in the first sentence the doctor said to me, there's no cure for this, you've got to learn coping skills to manage it for the rest of your life, my thoughts would be, well, I'm going to get older, it's going to get worse. I don't particularly want to live life like that. I want to learn how I can live a more fulfilled life, even though it might mean living with pain in it. And interestingly, I gave a talk last week on a complex person embedded in a complex world, relating to pain. And for that I interviewed people who had recovered from long-term pain and recovered from conditions like fibromyalgia. We're told there's no, people don't recover from it, but people do. And they had very similar things to say. They all still had pain, but the relationship with pain was different. So they said, I don't live a pain-centric life anymore. One lady said to me, my pain used to be here, but now it's here. I found one of the big things was I found me again. I found the person I am again, connected with that person without the labels attached. And the other big thing was the fear has gone. I don't fear pain anymore. And one of the big things they attributed that to was learning about their biology, learning how pain works, and the fact that it's not harmful, it's not a reliable indicator of what's actually happening in their body. It has to do with a lot of the other stuff going on in their lives. I think that was quite interesting that they were, they weren't saying the pain is gone. They weren't, they were saying I'm living fulfilled lives. I found me again, and the fear has gone. So I think, that led me to ask, well, what are we aiming for in pain clinics? Because I think until we actually really look at the people who recovered, we can't really I think we're aiming for the wrong thing.
What do you think they're currently aiming for, and what could we be aiming for?
Well, they're focusing on symptom management rather than focusing on nourishing the person. Because I think a lot of these people have lost the person they are because of the impact that pain has had on their lives. And a lot of them have got other stuff happening as well. They've got financial issues. The benefit system in this country certainly doesn't support recovery. It actually promotes sickness and dependency. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but people, the other thing that came out in these interviews, that people, they're afraid of lots of things. They're afraid of benefits being stopped, so then being homeless. They're afraid of getting older. They're afraid of pain getting worse. But a lot of them, and I hear this a lot of them are afraid of getting better.
Why would that be?
Because if they show in any respect they're getting better, the benefits will be taken away. No question, immediately withdrawn. And we're seeing this a lot, even people who, you know, with conditions like progressive multiple sclerosis, who are unable to walk, are having their mobility cars taken away from them.
Wow.
So people are very mindful of this. So they're afraid of that. I suppose it's the interim period between, you know, sort of being better and being able to work. But then if you look at it realistically, a lot of these people haven't worked for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So realistically, if they were fit tomorrow, would anybody give them a job?
Yeah,
You know, so it's, yes, and they're not, you know, they've thought these things through.
Yep.
So there's a lot of fear there.
Now, you mentioned that there were some commonalities in people who have recovered. What have you seen those to be? Or what's a theme that you've noticed?
I think finding the person they are, their identity, the knowledge, having knowledge about how their biology is working. I think we're all brought up, and I was, even when I trained as a physio, that pain equaled harm. That, you know, we always said, let pain be your guide. Well, as soon as you feel pain, stop. But now we know we were actually training people to become more immobile, because you have to push slightly into that pain to start improving.
Yep.
Sorry, I've forgotten the question.
Just some commonalities in people
Yes.
who've managed to you know, master living with pain or living with discomfort.
The main thing is that fear is gone, and so when they get pain, they're more curious about it than they are frightened by it. So then it doesn't trigger off those cycles of fear. Oh, my pain's coming back. Oh, this is the start of a flare-up. This is going to get worse, and you know, I'm going to be a long time without it again. It's a sort of, ooh, got a bit of pain, and I wonder why, or it's no more than a fleeting sort of. And some of these people still had flare-ups, but maybe they were 2 years apart.
Oh wow.
But what they're saying is the flare-ups are not those deep, dark pits that they used to be.
So they might attribute, if they've got discomfort during the day, they might say, oh, is that because I've done extra walking, or I've moved more than I would normally do? Or...
And you said, I said normal life has flare-ups. You know, everybody has their down days where they're feeling bad.
Yeah.
So I think it's a recognition that actually normal life isn't perfect as well.
Yeah.
And that actually pain is a part of normal life.
Yeah, but I think all of us have been trained that it's a danger. It's a you must take a tablet. And for many people, the tablets are almost a handcuff.
Yes.
Many of the drugs, when they're of a certain potency, are that it's difficult to travel with them. It's difficult, you know, fear of travelling. What if I run out of medicine and they get stolen? Or...
Yeah, and also some of them are on such high doses of medicine. I'm convinced that a lot of their symptoms are the side effects
of the drugs.
You know, I have people who are on your maximum dose of fentanyl plus 10 to 12 tramadol a day, plus maximal doses of antidepressants and amitriptyline, and they still rate their pain as a level 9 or
Wow.
You know, there's nothing left for them then, and they're sometimes, you know, they can be so knocked out by these drugs that they have difficulty staying awake.
Have you seen people being able to come back from those levels and sort of wean them back a bit?
It's a big problem in this country now that I think when you get to that level you need a proper drugs rehab program. Because the withdrawal, the symptoms of withdrawal are so bad in these people that they don't go down that line, and there's no support there for them. Although, you know, we say that we can support them, but I think a lot of them need almost a period of inpatient care to support in that.
Do you think some of this cycle starts from like well-meaning doctors or well-meaning clinicians say, well, you know, this person's in distress and I can't sit with a person being in distress, therefore I will give them something and it will help us both?
Yes, and I think that, you know, you have 10-minute consultations that people don't find out the person's story, and there is this sort of need to have a prescription when you leave a doctor, really, isn't it? And I think our society has come to expect a quick fix, and doctors haven't had any other options available to them either.
Certainly, I haven't received training in being able to be in mindfulness or you know, even pain management. It's, as a general practitioner, there's very little that we know or have been trained in.
Yeah.
But you have an area of interest in slow fixes.
Yeah.
What? Because it sounds like you do a number of different things. What are your interests?
So when I was offered the opportunity to run my own pain program, I decided not to call it a pain management program. I decided to call it a well-being program for people with long-term pain, for people with pain. So focusing on improving their well-being, focusing on nourishing the person, but also giving information about how pain works, and also offering some fairly simple tools to them that they can do. They could go home and do right now. And a lot of what I've learned over the years has come from my research into knitting.
Yes. So what's the connection between knitting and your therapy?
Well, the story is that I gave up physio in 2003 because I became really frustrated even back then at the system I found myself working in. I was expected to do somebody's rehab, for example, from a very profound stroke in 5 visits. And I was a neurophysio at the time. So I had to change a career and became a freelance production editor for a big magazine company. Working mainly on the computer and camera magazines. When I finished my training there, I was offered a 4 months on the craft book portfolio of the publisher, and one of my jobs was to read and organise the letters pages. So that meant reading the letters coming in. And about, I would say, good 99% of the letters were talking about the therapeutic benefits of craft, but particularly knitting. And so my medical head went on instantly and thought, this is really interesting, because the first letter I picked up was from a 14-year-old who said, I don't have to take my pain meds when I'm knitting. Wow. She was in and out of hospital a lot. A second one was from a lady who tried to commit suicide, and her husband had taken her in a small project, a knitting project, into hospital, and she said, now I look forward to every project, look forward to every day. So I thought, this is something, because I was working on the community as a physio before I gave up. I was encountering so many people who just lived behind 4 walls, and totally isolated, and I was being asked by a GP to, Mrs. Smith can't get out of her chair, would you go and give her some exercises? And I could tell you with 100% certainty that Mrs. Smith wouldn't do her exercises. The reason why she wasn't getting out of her chair was she had no reason to get out of her chair in the day, and I was usually the only person she saw. My original thought was perhaps this could enable Mrs. Smith to be successful at something from her armchair and to contribute to something and to make something. So that was my original thought. And then I started looking at it in a little bit more detail. And being a neurophysio, I was interested in the sort of the two-handed nature of cross-body nature of the movements and the rhythmic and the effect that might have on the brain. And as I looked at it more widely, I thought it really dawned on me that actually it could be a really powerful tool. So then I asked the local pain clinic if they would help me test out my theories and run a therapeutic knitting group linked to the pain clinic, which they did. And that was 12 years ago now, and we have about 20 people who come on a regular basis still. It's not in the pain clinic anymore, but it's still people with long-term pain. And for some it's a lifeline. For others it's changed their lives completely. For some who live in very traumatic situations that they can't escape on, for maybe family have got mental health issues or something, it provides them with a safe place once a week where they can put that burden down and just come and enjoy themselves, once a week and laugh. It also allows them to contribute to others. So we've clothed all the children in an African village, for example. We knit teddy bears for the A&E department, so every child who goes into A&E gets a teddy. They've knitted twiddle muffs for people with dementia, so they do all sorts of things as well. So that helps them feel more worthwhile as well in society. But for others, there are a couple of people in there who weren't able to be around people before, and literally when they encountered something dangerous or perceived something to be threatening, they would literally run away. Sometimes, found the other side of the country. So for one of the people there, it's taken me a year. It took me a year to get her to come to the knitting group, sitting with her for an hour a week, just knitting alongside. What we found, actually, and that was as part of the pain clinic, found is if we just sat in a room and knitted with her, it seems to be make it much easier for people to talk. So sort of knitting side by side, we were just talking as two people talking, and gradually the story came out, which she wasn't able to tell anybody before. So she has joined the group now, and quite happily comes into the Centre of Bath on a bus on a busy day now, from not being able to be with people.
Wow, that's brilliant.
And there are a couple there who say they have recovered from fibromyalgia.
Wow.
But that's taken sort of 8 to 10 years of doing things sort of under the radar. I think a therapeutic knitting group allows you to do things under the radar, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I think that the conscious mind is occupied with the process, and that enables the subconscious mind, or the not quite as conscious mind, to relax or to let go or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would have to say that the knitting community is one of the nicest communities I've ever been part of. And even knitting on the tube in London, a chap leaned over to me and he goes, "Oi, that looks right relaxing, just watching you knit." And I went, "Oh, okay, cool, thank you." And I'm an open carry knitter. I'll do it anyway. But I think it is a really nice community, I think.
Yes.
And even on planes or whatever, I will have people come up to me and they go, "You know what, I really liked, I haven't knitted for years, and you've motivated me to want to get back into it. And I think, oh, cool. Rock on. It's just one stitch at a time.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about knitting that enables that to happen?
I think it's the two-handed rhythmic movements. It's sort of the portability of it. Because it gives we've actually been able to cure panic attacks, for example, using knitting. So you get somebody to carry around a small project with them when they feel their anxiety levels rising. You take the project out, and they get this sort of instantaneous familiar calm. And I've even seen it stop a panic attack sort of midway. Obviously you need to have learned to knit beforehand.
Practice it once or twice.
Most of the stories we've collected will talk about the calming of nature of the rhythmic movement. And in fact, at the conference I was at last week where I was speaking, we were looking at ways of calming the primitive brain, and one of the ways we've identified is through rhythm, so rhythmic bodily movement. And that's one of the principles of Tai Chi as well, is that body reflects the mind. So, but also gestures have an atmosphere that make a difference. So bodily movements can change the atmosphere of the mind. So you can't. So for example, so the thinking now is that when you're in a crisis or when you're feeling fearful or something, you can't really address things from the top down. Because you can't say to your mind, for goodness sake, calm down or relax. But you can do things from the bottom up to get sort of to give experience of the feeling, and rhythm does that. And I think particularly rhythm, the information we get from our hands is really important. So we tried to come up with other activities actually, but apart from crochet, which you probably need to adapt more, so using more of a two-handed, there isn't anything else that's 100% portable and doesn't interfere with other people, that you can actually carry around with you. Some people have said that they get a similar effect with drumming. I actually get a similar effect when I'm touch typing actually. But it's the sort of rhythm I get into. Using a rocking chair. I've sort of, for somebody who's really traumatised or in a lot of pain, I've often advised using a rocking chair, and they find that really soothing. And I think if you think about it, sort of highly traumatised people tend to rock and pace or tap, don't they? So it's almost like a self-medication probably then.
And is it the limbic system releasing energy or something like that?
So I think I'm fairly confident down to the rhythmic movements, plus its portability. But there's also, it's one of the few things that you can do and not have eye contact if you don't want to. So in a group, if you're feeling particularly vulnerable or unwell, you don't have to participate if you don't want to. It's acceptable to sit and knit quietly. And I think, I've asked the ladies who come to my group, and none of them would have come if it wasn't for the activity. Because if you invite people who are unwell to come to a group, they think, oh my God, they're going to go around asking what my name is, what I do, and ask me to contribute, and they get so terrified that they don't attend.
Do you find that those people are very happy to talk about their current project though? They'll go, oh, this is, I'm making a teddy, or I've gone the big slog and I'm going to make a cardigan or something like that. And often when people come to the group for the first time, they can come very closed down. They might sit like this, and you say, would you want to knit? No, thank you. So that's okay, I suppose. Just sit and have a cup of tea, and you can hear them listening to the conversation that's going around and gradually lifting their heads up, and then they might say, oh, that's a nice colour,
or can you help me wind something up? Well, my grandmother used to knit. So that there are a lot of openings for conversations that are not threatening conversations. So not, you're quite comfortable and nobody's going to ask you about your personal life or what you're doing and things.
Have you found, because this has popped into my head, have you seen a change in people's projects? So as they improve, does their colour choices change? Does their knitting style change? Or
yeah, I think it does. And I think what we're actually doing is not what I set out to do, but and I think it has a big part to play in the sort of healing process, is nurturing somebody's creative ability. Because initially when they come, they're very closed down, and it's just very tunnel visioned on problems. And the good thing about knitting, what we found with vulnerable people, is that they need a framework to adhere to. It's pointless putting them in front of a blank canvas. So knitting gives us that framework while still allowing us to nurture creative sort of ability. So they can choose a colour, they can choose texture. Might get them to knit a square first. And then a lot of them have gone on to designing their own stuff.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I think what I also have observed is that people who are depressed tend to choose more muted and darker colours. That doesn't mean that if you are knitting in black you are depressed.
But it means you've got good eyes though.
Yeah, so. Yes. And people who, if you're in a manic phase, are often knitting with bright neon colours. So I only use that if I know somebody's depressed and they're knitting with black, for example, or greys. I will gently encourage them to try a different colour. And actually, we had a lady with fibromyalgia who wasn't able to hold a ball of pink yarn. Because she said it actually sensitized her, so it made her more sensitive because of the vibrancy of the colour. And she chose navy to knit with, so we compromised by having a navy with a yellow fleck in. But interestingly, she moved on to being able to use different colours.
That's great.
Yeah, so it is quite interesting, and nobody's looked into that at all and why that should be, but it makes sort of sense to me that the more whole you become, the greater your choice, greater the number of things you're happy with.
And there's so many options around the edges that I would look at a designer like Stephen West and I would think, oh, those colours are a bit too bright for me. And now I think, well, yeah, I may not wear those colours myself, but I like the way that orange is going with that. And I would have never put those two colours together. And I look to nature now and say, well, would I see those colours in nature? And if the answer is yes, then okay, well, I'll have a go at knitting them together. And sometimes it's a surprise, and sometimes it's like, oh well, okay. But I found that, particularly with my projects as well, I generally hate the project for the first couple of rows because it doesn't look right. And then it's not until 10 or 20 rows that you go, oh, actually, okay, it looks like a whatever. Do you find that people enjoy the sense of multiple micro successes? Like look, I did a row, and I've mastered purling now, and
absolutely. And even just one stitch. I often used to get referred people with really painful hands, who don't think they can do anything. So sometimes they may only be able to do 5 stitches before having to have a break and then do another 5. And every stitch is an accomplishment. And the end of a row is wonderful. So I think you have a number of ongoing rewards when you knit. You have the reward of the process, the end product, and then you can choose whether to give the end product as a gift. if you want to, and all those have their benefits. So it's not about the end product, although that's important. It's more about the process of enjoying the process, and I think that can be translated across into life. It's about enjoying every day and the process of life rather than just trying to go from A to B as fast as you can.
Absolutely. And I love if I've made something and gift it to somebody, and I'm thrilled if I see a photo of them wearing the hat or the gloves or whatever. I'm like, yay, they're enjoying that and they're getting the value out of it. So yeah, that's a really nice thing.
Yeah. And also it's quite interesting when we knitted that package of clothes for children in a village in Lesotho in Africa. They sent us a video back.
Oh wow.
And they needed knitted things because it got really cold at night. And I showed the video, and the women there were saying, look how happy they are and they've got nothing. And there was a real eye-opener, and they said, we've got everything in this country and look how miserable we are. It was just a real eye-opener too, because literally the countryside around them was completely bare. And yet they were happy and they were singing and they were playing and so it actually gave them some sort of perspective. I think people can lose when you get stuck in your own little world, you can lose your perspective of what the rest of the world is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you had Bath, it's a little bit specific for somebody who might be watching this video somewhere outside of the UK or that. What resources are available for people who might be living with a chronic pain or a chronic illness that are interested in exploring knitting more?
I don't think there are a huge number of resources available at this moment. I think it's actually literally only it's taken me an awfully long time to get to this stage. Because when I first started it, and approached doctors and scientists and academics, I had to call knitting something different. They laughed. Okay. So I called it a bilateral rhythmic psychosocial intervention.
I love it. That's brilliant. That's so good.
And then people started to listen, and now I can talk openly about it. Because people are coming around to accepting that activities like knitting can also be helpful. So we are seeing more interest in Australia, in the States. There's Georgetown, the hospital in Georgetown in Washington in the States has got about 50 knitting therapists working in there, and they're working mainly on the cancer ward. They started the neonatal unit, knitting with parents, sitting alongside while they wait alongside the babies, so knitting tiny baby clothes, so being productive but also managing their own stress at the same time. There's a hospital in Bristol has got a knitting therapist working on the elderly care wards, and they've had a big impact on people with dementia. There, people who were shouting and screaming all day long are now much calmer. And even those unable to knit, what she's done is given them a ball of yarn, and just stroking the ball of yarn and playing with the ball of yarn has calmed them down. She's also working with staff to manage staff stress, and working with parents in the neonatal clinic. So we are gradually getting there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a wonderful thing. If people want to see this video and they're able to get to Bath or to visit you, what would be the best way that they could contact you or speak with you?
Happy for them to email me. Yes, betsan@stitchlinks.com.
Could you spell that?
BETSAN.
Yep.
@STITCHLINKS.com.
That's wonderful. Thank you. do you have any, because I've really appreciated your time and thank you. Do you have any messages out there for anybody that might be watching this video? Made it to the end because they're I want to get to project now.
Happy knitting.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
That's okay.